You absolutely right. Because if I know she's up for re-election, then you know she knows she's up for re-election. And for her to continue to be mocking and antagonizing and talking down condescendingly to her constituents, she has no fear about not being re-elected in 2026. All of those people that were at her town hall, they were expressing their displeasure with her. How in the world can she be so confident to come back and continue to mock them and antagonize them and not be afraid that she could lose re-election? And so when I thought about it, I'm like, all of these Republicans seem to have no fear about not being reelected. So I went on over to Mildred, and I had a conversation with Mildred because I remember reading in Project 2025 about them messing around with voting. They were planning to do some things to suppress the vote. We've been watching them put some things in place on the state level to suppress the vote nationwide, to suppress the minority vote. So I went over to Mildred. I said, Mildred, what does Project 2025 say about suppressing the minority vote in the United States? Here's some things that Mildred came back with. Number one, weaken enforcement of voting rights laws. So what they are wanting to do, and what some states have done, they have done away with weekend voting altogether. Early voting, they are trying to reduce early voting times, and they are trying to diminish the authority of the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. We've been watching Donald Trump do exactly that. I don't even think there is a civil rights division within the Justice Department anymore. So they are enacting all of this right now, and it's straight out of the Project 2025 handbook. Mildred says they want to criminalize voting errors. We've been seeing this, right? They're getting rid of the civil rights division, but in its place, they are putting people in place to file criminal charges against voters who make errors when it comes to voting. And that's to intimidate people and keep them from even trying to vote. If you remember, Ron DeSantis did this sting operation down in the state of Florida where he went and he arrested a bunch of black people who voted because they thought they had received their right to vote back. They had some issues with criminality and stuff like that, but they thought they had received their right to vote back. I forget the proper term for it. I'm telling you, menopause with the brain fog, that shit is absolutely real. I'm always not able to remember this or that. I can't remember the proper term for it. But he went around the state and he arrested black people, and he did it publicly. We had it all over the news because he wants to intimidate other black people. He don't want them to even think about. He wants them to have a fear of going out to vote. Ron DeSantis, I remember I've said it on more than one occasion. Ron DeSantis, the state of Florida, is the test of Project 2025. The state of Florida and the state of Texas, they implemented a lot from the Project 2025 handbook. There's more. Aggressive voter roll purges. Project 2025 advocates for granting the federal government access to state voter rolls, facilitating aggressive purging of voter lists. Such actions have historically led to the removal of eligible voters, disproportionately affecting minority communities. We've been watching all of these Republican states, one after the other, purging hundreds of thousands of voters from the voter rolls. We've watched how they employ different tactics to get people purged from the voting rolls. Here in the state of Georgia, any regular person can can contest a person's right to vote, meaning they can say, I believe this person is, the address listed is not an actual home address. They need to come in and prove that they have the right to vote. Any regular person can do that. Contest another person's right to vote. And then that person has to go down and prove that they have a right to vote. Have to go sit before a committee to prove that they have the right to vote. Also here in the state of Georgia, it was reported a couple of months ago that they were purging hundreds of thousands of voters from the voter rolls. So Georgia, make sure you're checking your voter status regularly. Other states, make sure you are checking your voter status regularly. It's in the Project 2025 handbook. Introduction of a citizen question in the census. Now, I haven't seen the new census report, but I know that Donald Trump was trying to put new questions onto the census, and that stuff was going before federal courts. I don't know if it ended up at the Supreme Court. Y'all let me know, but I've seen a portion of this trying to be put in action. Implementation of the SAVE Act. Y'all remember this? This was one of the first things that they started working on when Donald Trump won the election. Y'all remember this? I can't remember if it passed. I know that they were working on the SAVE Act. They implemented some other stuff. The SAVE Act was the reason why married women needed to be worried about their right to vote, because the license doesn't match the birth certificate, and you needed to make sure that you had a passport or you had to prove that you are a citizen in this country so that you would be able to vote. And that was going to affect mostly married women, because married women, their birth certificate does not match their driver's license, and their right to vote could be contested. This is what they are trying to do right now. Did it pass, y'all? I can't remember. Restructuring of the Department of Justice voting section. And that starts with getting rid of the Civil Rights Division. And that has already been completed. Under the current administration, the DOJ's voting section has shifted its focus from protecting voting rights to investigating alleged voter fraud. This realignment raises concerns about the potential targeting of election officials and voter registration groups, which could suppress efforts to increase voter participation. Collectively, these proposals could lead to reduced voter turnout because it's going to intimidate Black people and keep them from voting, because they don't want to have to deal with possibly being arrested or anything like that. They don't want no problems. All they want to do is cast their vote. But Republicans know what they're doing. Lead to reduced voter turnout among minority populations by introducing barriers to registration, increasing the risk of disenfranchisement through voter roll purges, and fostering an environment of fear around voting due to the criminalization of errors. Civil rights organizations, including the NAACP and the Thurgood Marshall Institute, have expressed alarm over these potential outcomes, and so on, and so on, and so on. Mildred says, in summary, while Project 2025 does not overly state an intent to suppress minority votes, the cumulative effect of its proposed policy could significantly hinder the ability of these communities to participate fully in the democratic process. Simply put, they don't want to come out and say that they're trying to suppress the vote. They just want to implement policies that will do just that. Period. Point blank. The end. This is why they are running amok in the Republican Party. Don't let them turn you around.